vision or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Will Evans, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the April 16th, 2026 issues of the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Leading off, we'll head to Alabama. Alabama postpones April 20th data center hearing. The Town of Alabama Planning Board has canceled next Monday's public hearing on the site plan for the $19.5 billion Stream Data Center proposed for the Science, Technology, and Advanced Manufacturing Park. In a press release Wednesday afternoon, Planning Board Chairman Carl Klumpf said the town's sound consultant, Aurora Acoustical Consultants of Elma, hasn't yet completed its peer review of Stream's provided noise study. Crump wrote that the planning board will reschedule the hearing once the peer review is complete and its results are made publicly available. A new date has not yet been set. The planning board believes it is important that both board members and the public have the opportunity to review this information before the public hearing is held, Crump wrote in the press release. This decision is part of the Planning Board's ongoing commitment to a thorough, transparent, and orderly review process. A separate noise study by the multinational engineering firm GHD, commissioned by the Genesee County Economic Development Center, also remains underway. A separate hearing on the project's $1.5 billion in public incentives, scheduled for this Thursday, April 16th, will continue as planned at the Alabama Fire Hall, 2230 Judge Road. Written comments on the project are due to the Genesee County Economic Development Center by midnight this Friday, April 17th, and can be submitted by email to streampublichearing@gcedc.com. Moving over to Perry now, a visit from the Moo Crew. Mobile dairy experience spreads dairy knowledge in Perry. It goes without saying that dairy is crucial in the GLOW region, G-L-O-W. But a reminder never hurts, and if funds involved, it's even better. Elementary students at Perry Central School brushed up on their dairy knowledge Wednesday when the Mobile Dairy Experience paid a visit. The 53-foot expandable trailer features immersive visuals and hands-on learning stations aimed at educating people on the dairy industry. We travel all across New York State to help inform and educate New Yorkers of all ages about the importance of New York farming, said Brian Dougherty, who belongs to the exhibit's Moo Crew. We go to schools statewide from pre-K to 12th grade, as well as colleges and universities, he said. We teach them everything you basically need to know about New York dairy farming, about where and how we take care of cows, sustainability and technology on the farm, as well as career opportunities in New York's dairy industry. The Mobile Dairy Experience is sponsored through the New York Animal Agriculture Coalition. It travels statewide and commenced its second season in March. Students on Wednesday made their way from station to station, viewing videos and participating in the interactive displays that covered everything from basic cow anatomy to dairy technology to the products produced. Last year's schedule included fairs, schools, and community events, welcoming thousands of visitors and giving them a chance to learn directly about dairy farming. The exhibit helped bridge the gap between consumers and agriculture by bringing farmers' stories into communities where many people have little first-hand experience with modern farming, organizers said in a news release. New York State has about 3,000 dairy farms, which produce over 16 billion pounds of milk annually, making New York the nation's fifth largest dairy state. Wyoming County ranked second statewide for milk production value in 2023, according to the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, with Genesee ranked fifth for agricultural commodities overall. A total of 16.1 billion pounds of milk were produced statewide in 2023. We are fifth in the country in dairy production, and we are excited to help educate on behalf of dairy farmers to continue that trend, Doherty said. Our next article carries the headline, Workshop Aims to Help Farmers. Annual session will discuss DOT rules for farm trucks and equipment, and this is from Warsaw. Anybody who operates farm trucks and equipment is encouraged to attend an upcoming informational session on New York State Department of Transportation regulations. The annual workshop will be conducted 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Saturday in room LC1 of the Wyoming County Agribusiness Center on 36 Center Street. The session will provide important updates and guidance on safely and legally operating farm vehicles on local roads, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Wyoming County officials said in a news release. It is free to attend and lunch will be provided. Registration is required at https://reg.cce.cornell.edu/NYSDOT-regs Farms Spring 2026 256. Agriculture is a busy business, said Eric Zizek of Zizek's Farms LLC in Bliss. Having the opportunity to sit down and learn from New York State troopers to really understand the laws can take a lot of unnecessary stress off people's shoulders. I've attended this before, and the session is especially helpful for anyone hauling milk, feed, or other farm materials, he continued. It's also valuable for those involved in planting, manure spreading, and eventually harvesting. Work is busy now and is only going to get busier, he said. Fortunately, the information is broken down in plain language and is easy to remember, largely because participants hear directly from troopers who deal with these issues every day, Zizek said. It's a great opportunity to ask questions. Participants will gain insight into a range of topics, including defining a commercial motor vehicle, understanding what qualifies as a covered vehicle, licensing and registration requirements, rules of the road for farm vehicles, size and weight regulations, including permits, required equipment, and safety considerations. The session is designed to help farmers stay compliant, avoid costly violations, and ensure the safety of everybody on the road, officials said. Contact Karan Gala at 585-786-2251 or CEG 256 at cornell.edu for more information. Again, contact Karan Gala at 585-786-2251 or CEG 256 at cornell.edu for more information. From Batavia now, two promoted at Batavia PD. Promotions have been announced for two city police officers. William Young has been promoted to detective, city police said. He's a 5-year veteran of the department who graduated from the Alfred State Police Academy in 2021. Young is also a member of the Crisis Negotiation Team and Batavia Police Department Honor Guard. He has a certification in crisis intervention training and is active in community policing. Joseph Weglarski was also promoted to sergeant. He's a 4-year city police veteran and graduated from Alfred State Police Academy in 2022. Weglarski is a 3-time consecutive recipient of the Stop DWI Top Cop Award through the Genesee County Stop DWI program, police said. He's also a certified field training officer and was an active member last year in the department's neighborhood enforcement team. Staying in Batavia now, our next article is Go Health Office offers rabies reminder. Wild and baby animals can carry dangerous diseases. As the weather gets warmer, officials at the Genesee and Orleans County Health Departments are offering a rabies reminder. More people spend time outside, and it's common to see wild and baby animals in yards, parks, and wooded areas, officials said in a news release. They're reminding people to be careful around wild animals, stray pets, and young animals. Rabies is a serious disease, which can be prevented, they said. Rabies usually spreads through bites from infected animals like raccoons, skunks, bats, and foxes, said Environmental Health Director Darren Brody of Go Health. Even though baby animals may look harmless, they can still carry rabies. Do not touch or feed wild or stray animals. If an animal looks sick or injured, call animal control for help. Rabies can be deadly if it is not treated quickly. If a person is bitten, officials advise to wash the area right away with soap and water and get medical care as soon as possible. All animal bites should be reported to the Genesee or Orleans County Health Departments. Rabies prevention tips include: make sure your pets have their rabies shots and are up to date. Stay away from wild animals, stray pets, and baby animals, even if they seem friendly or hurt. Report animals that act strange, such as being aggressive, confused, or overly friendly. Keep your pets on a leash to stop them from coming into contact with wild or stray animals. If your pet is bitten, contact your veterinarian right away and report it to the health department. Take steps to prevent bats from coming indoors. If you find a bat inside, safely capture it and contact the health department. Do not let it go. For help, watch the Go Health Minute on how to safely catch a bat. Go Health Minute. Residents are encouraged to take advantage of our upcoming drive-through rabies vaccination clinics for dogs, cats, and ferrets in Genesee and Orleans counties, offered at no charge. People are advised to bring proof of previous vaccinations. Sessions will include, in Genesee County, clinics at the Genesee County Fairgrounds on 5056 East Main Street in Batavia will include from May 14th from 3:30 to 6 p.m., August 13th from 3:30 to 6 p.m., and October 8th from 3:30 to 6 p.m. In Orleans County, clinics at the Orleans County Fairgrounds at 12690 State Road 31 in Albion will include April 25th from 9 to 11:30 a.m., June 17th from 3:30 to 6 p.m., August 19th from 3:30 to 6 p.m., that is. And October 7th from 3:30 to 6 p.m. Visit gohealthny.org for more information on Go Health's programs and services. From Gainesville now, Gainesville extends solar battery moratorium. Town board votes unanimously for 6-month extension. The Gainesville Town Board voted Monday evening to extend its moratorium on new solar energy and battery storage facilities. The unanimous vote adds 6 months to a moratorium that had been in place for 6 months previously, while members of the Town Planning Board worked to draft a permanent law regulating the facilities. While details of the permanent law aren't yet clear, Town Supervisor David Granger said Wednesday that the Planning Board is reviewing several other towns' laws, as well as an example law provided by Wyoming County. There are a handful of different zoning laws that they're looking at and trying to take the best out of each, he said by phone. It's easy to just copy somebody and say that we're going to adopt somebody else's law, but you need to sit down and you need to come up with your own law with what you're looking for. The town board meets on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, 2 Tall House Road. The planning board meets. The planning board meets, but the article cuts off and doesn't give us a date. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And we'll turn to the opinion page now. And our first opinion article is written by Christopher Konkanos of the Los Angeles Times. Artemis II does for our era what Apollo 8 did for 1968. Millions in the streets, an unpopular war, violence, and in the middle of all that, a moonshot. The parallels between today and 1968 are eerie. Nearly 60 years ago, civil rights marches and anti-Vietnam War rallies burst across the country. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated. Police beat protesters outside the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. A congressional committee stated that the mental picture that many foreigners have of our nation is increasingly that of a violent, lawless, overbearing, even sick society. At year's end, fearing that the rival Soviet Union would launch a cosmonaut to the moon, the U.S. sent its first crew there. The daring Apollo 8 mission was only the second time humans had flown the spacecraft and the first time they had journeyed to another object in our solar system. Orbiting the moon on Christmas Eve, the astronauts read from the opening of Genesis on live television. One woman wrote NASA that the mission had saved 1968. That message was underscored by the iconic color Earthrise photo. The poet Archibald MacLeish also wrote a front-page New York Times essay saying we are all brothers who know now they are truly brothers. Today, No Kings protests draw huge crowds to oppose President Donald Trump, standing up against masked federal agents abducting people, the illegal surprise attack on Iran, corruption, and inflation. Americans have been killed by ICE in full view of cameras, and twice in the last 2 years, would-be assassins have gone after Trump himself. And then came our era's moonshot, Artemis II, whose 4 astronauts have returned safely to Earth after a lunar flyby, the first time humans have been in the vicinity of the moon since 1972. Last week, Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, a Southern California native, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Canadian mission specialist Jeremy Hansen traveled 252,756 miles from Earth, the farthest any humans have ever been. A cynic might say, given the state of Earth, perhaps they should have stayed up there. But astronauts are anything but cynical. A nearly flawless test mission of the Orion capsule, well, there were toilet problems, unfolded from a literally brilliant launch to the stately splashdown. Last week, more than 600,000 people watched the NASA YouTube channel as the crew saw the moon as it truly is, a sublime, wild, awesome place, as Cook put it, not just a poster in the sky. She offered metaphor after metaphor, bringing the moon into focus, noting that bright, small craters dotted the surface like a lampshade with tiny pinprick holes and the light shining through. Wiseman compared huge gorges to how water looks draining off a Grand Canyon cliff. Glover saw darkness so intense he imagined falling through to the middle of the moon. More domestically, Hansen saw a brownish area and compared it to a piece of pie. This is not breathlessness or frivolity. As Cook said, the moon is a real place. We need to know it as such and as a human symbol while we aim for future flights. Compare this eloquent, science-based, and culturally respectful enthusiasm to Apollo 8's negative reactions. The moon was not, in the words of Commander Frank Borman, a very inviting place to live or work. The astronauts who just came back from there would disagree, though their love of Earth shone through too. I was also moved by the kinship of the Artemis II flyers. I've never seen astronauts smile and laugh as much as this crew did. I've never seen astronauts cry in space. When Hansen proposed naming a crater Carol after Wiseman's late wife, he choked up. So did I. All 4 hugged and wiped tears from their eyes. This may have been Artemis II's Apollo 8 moment. In 1968, the crew read an origin story from an ancient text. In 2026, the crew used the name of a loved one to mark the moon. Both gestures captured human hearts. "We love you from the moon," Glover said. Cook added, "We will always choose each other." Artemis II sets the stage for a new era of lunar exploration, science, and possible commerce. With the discovery of water ice at the lunar poles, humans can tap that material to understand the history of our solar system and the development of conditions that led to life, like us, and project that understanding to exoplanets around other stars. Back on Earth, the chaos of the anti-science Trump administration led to the release, during Artemis, of a proposed nearly 50% cut to NASA science. A similar cut was defeated last year and will again galvanize strong opposition. We are these days quite present with doom. There is so much to be done, to be set against, and to work for. We need to embrace the wonder and care embodied in Artemis II, remembering what backup astronaut Jenny Gibbons said of her own work. She didn't fly, but was still on a shared mission. So are we. We're all crewmates on a shared mission. Staying on the opinion page, our next article is an editorial from the Chicago Tribune on the President and the Pope. 22 years ago, the U.S. was at war, just as it is today, and a president visited the Pope at the Vatican. President George W. Bush's meeting with Pope John Paul II was reported to be an awkward one. With the war in Iraq raging, the 84-year-old Pope, weakened by Parkinson's disease and less than a year from his death, condemned the war in Iraq, with Bush sitting right next to him. And the Pope appeared to chastise the U.S. for the abuse of prisoners at the infamous Abu Ghraib prison. "In the past few weeks," the Pope said, "other deplorable events have come to light, which have troubled the civic and religious conscience of all." Afterwards, Bush had nothing but positive things to say about the visit. "Being in his presence is an awesome experience," Bush said. The job of Pope, among other things, is to tend to the spiritual and moral needs of Catholics the world over. That often means being a voice for peace between nations, even when it's inconvenient for leaders of the free world. At times, the Pope's job will clash with that of the President of the United States. The latter swears an oath to uphold the laws of this country and to preserve and safeguard the Constitution. Implicit in that oath is to defend the country from foes, whether external or internal. The former answers to a higher power. Pope John Paul II's comments weren't the first time a pope had criticized the U.S. for deploying its military might. Like Bush, our past presidents generally have chosen not to engage directly with past Holy Fathers, rightly viewing their own jobs as different in character from leading the world's largest organized religious denomination. One can only imagine how a President, Donald J. Trump, would have reacted after being subject to such a public lecture. Actually, we don't have to work too hard to imagine such a thing, because Trump on Sunday decided to pick a fight with Chicago-born Pope Leo XIV over Leo's utterly unsurprising criticism of the war on Iran, prosecuted jointly by the U.S. and Israel. Leo had particularly choice words after Trump threatened last week to destroy Iran in terms shocking even to many of his own supporters. "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again," Trump warned on April 7th, as his self-imposed deadline for opening the Strait of Hormuz approached. Leo responded that Trump's threat was truly unacceptable. "There are certainly questions of international law, but much more than that, it is a moral question," he said. Having thankfully not followed through on those civilization-killing threats, Trump, in a Truth Social post, said on Sunday that Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy, as if the Pope were running for Senate or something. I don't want a pope who criticizes the President of the United States because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide to do, setting record low numbers in crime and creating the greatest stock market in history. Trump's attack on Leo coincided with the president posting an image appearing to depict him in the form of Jesus, seemingly healing a very ill man with the power of his touch. Horrified reactions followed from prominent conservative evangelical voices, and that post was deleted. Trump on Monday said he thought the image was me as a doctor, which clearly virtually no one else thought, given the overwhelming reaction it provoked. Darren Bailey, the Republican nominee for Illinois' governor, reacted on Facebook with this: President Trump mocking a Chicago-born pope and posting himself as Jesus Christ is wrong. I don't care whose name is attached to it. I'll always call it like I see it. Following Trump's harsh criticism of him, Leo told reporters, I'm not afraid of the Trump administration or of speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel, which is what the church works for. Leo correctly noted, too, that he's not a politician and that we do not look at foreign policy from the same perspective as the president may have. The message of the gospel is clear. Blessed are the peacemakers, he said. The fact that Leo is the first American pope may well have something to do with the level of Trump's anger, not to mention that accomplishing the goals of going to war with Iran has proven harder than Trump believed at the outset. But with his message of peace, Leo only is communicating what numerous popes before him have done. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus said, when asked whether citizens should pay taxes to Rome, render under Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. In that familiar verse, people often focus on what is owed to Caesar and gloss over what is owed to God. That's to say, there's earthly authority and there's heavenly authority. President Trump should reflect on that, and then he might understand better, as his predecessors did, that the Pope owes no fealty to him, but instead must serve the Word of God as Christians understand it. Moving on from the opinion page now, our next article carries the headline, Exploration and History Lead to Exhibit. Dowd brings passions to hurt of the Antarctic. In 1871, a young newspaper reporter dreamed of becoming a polar explorer. He was destined to become Hurt of the Antarctic. With those words, local artist Roger Dowd provides the backdrop of Hurt of the Antarctic, a fascinating, fictional, though historical-based fact expedition of the graphic novel's protagonist, Edward Aaron Hurt. The work, described by Dowd as a make-believe 19th century polar expedition comprised of fabricated artifacts, is one of 3 new exhibits on display through May 30th at the Genesee Orleans Regional Arts Council Gallery at 201 East Main Street, Batavia. The others are images in upcycled plastic by Margaret Van Arsdale and the 2026 Art of the Rural exhibition. A free public reception is scheduled for 6 to 7:30 p.m. Thursday and includes brief comments from the artists. A cash bar will be available. Reached by telephone on Wednesday, Dowd talked about his latest project, which has been built upon on the very true story of Ernest Shackleton's legendary and harrowing expedition to Antarctica in 1914-1916. A retired graphic and web designer, mostly with Thomson Reuters, Dowd and his wife moved to Brockport from the Hudson Valley about 3 years ago. He said that despite his busy work schedule, he found time to pursue his hobbies, exploring sites such as the Appalachian Trail, Grand Canyon, and Zion National Park, and fantasizing about the Arctic, polar exploring, and stuff like that. In Hurt of the Antarctic, he creatively blends his interests, which also include a passion for 19th century history, into what he calls a fragmented multimedia saga that also features a bound 38-page book and exhibit guide available upon request. I read about Shackleton's boat journey back in the 80s, and it just captivated me, Dowd said. As an avid backpack explorer, I've always had a tremendous respect for explorers who went into the unknown without all the luxuries that we have now. You know, telecommunications or any chance of being rescued if they got into any trouble. And I'm interested in 19th century social history, American history. So there are just a lot of things that I had a lot of fun with the exhibit that I've been putting together for 30 years. When it was mentioned that he must have a vivid imagination, Dowd said, I often wondered what it would be like if we went to a museum about a person who is essentially fictional and all the artifacts that you see around that, the documentation, is completely fabricated and the person is entirely make-believe. So for me, because I don't consider myself a writer, I'm an artist and thought, well, I'd be able to tell a story in fragments. And that's what museum installations are. You learn something about the subject in fragments on the walls and on tables and so forth. Dowd said he is grateful to Go Art for providing him with space on the second floor for all of my bogus artifacts. He said he plans to have a couple of small dioramas items with him for people to examine and to enable them to connect with the images that are on the wall and also the story that I've put together. The longtime artist mentioned that he also conducts youth workshops at Go Art. I like to give back to the community, but also, too, I like to act as a grandfather to some of the kids and encourage them to tell their stories however they care to tell them, he said. They don't necessarily have to do what I do, but they just need to be free with their creative abilities. Images in Upcycled Plastic features the work of longtime art educator Margaret Van Arsdale, who creates portraits, landscapes, and abstract compositions entirely from post-consumer plastic. A former art instructor at Genesee Community College, she uses materials such as candy wrappers, frozen vegetable bags, and shopping bags, and reshapes them into thin plastic strands that form layered, colorful images. The annual Art of the Rural exhibition returns with a special focus on flowers, showcasing more than 40 juried works that reflect the creativity and perspectives of rural life. Cash prizes will be awarded during Thursday night's reception. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Our next article comes from Warsaw. Cancer survivor makes it to 20. Lynn Saxton seeks to raise $20,000 for cancer research through Ride for Roswell. There's not much that can stand in the way of Lynn Saxton. A retired Warsaw social studies teacher, a climate activist, and a two-time cancer survivor, Saxton saddles up on her Cannondale bicycle for a 20-mile ride around Buffalo every year, joining more than 7,000 bikers to raise funds for the Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. This year's Ride for Roswell will be Saxton's 20th. It's an anniversary she never expected to reach in 2005, when she first went to Roswell Park with a diagnosis of inflammatory breast cancer. With ordinary breast cancer, you usually have a lump, and people discovered it because of that, Saxton said Tuesday. The difference with inflammatory breast cancer is that it spreads through the skin. It has what you call peau d'orange look to it, which is the French term meaning orange skin. It's kind of a dimpled look, a little bit rough, and for a lot of people, it itches. Saxton had felt an itch for months without understanding why, an issue that often leads to misdiagnosis. It was only when she also noticed a fast-growing lump that she went to see a doctor. At the time, inflammatory breast cancer was sort of a death sentence, she said. A friend who had undergone treatment for inflammatory breast cancer died within 2 months of her diagnosis. The 5-year survival rate was about 50%, Saxton said. 10 years was basically nil. At Roswell Park, though, doctors were experimenting with a new method of treatment, starting with chemotherapy before performing surgery, the inverse of the traditional method. Saxton underwent chemotherapy for 4 months, followed by surgery, then a month of radiation. The cancer had spread to the lymph nodes in her left arm, which also needed to be removed. Yet, even while she was undergoing radiation, Saxton climbed on her bike for her first ride for Roswell, cycling for 1 mile and raising just over $1,000. It's not the last time Saxton returned to Roswell. In 2021, an annual breast cancer evaluation by her oncologist, Dr. Tracy O'Connor, turned up an unwelcome surprise. She came into the room and she said, "We think it's about time that we did something about that cancer on your pancreas," Saxton said. I said, "What cancer on my pancreas?" A spot that had gone unnoticed in 8 years of scans turned out to be a gastrointestinal stromal tumor, a form of cancer that rarely appears in the pancreas. Saxton immediately recognized the name of the surgery that was needed to remove it, the Whipple procedure. The only reason I'd heard of a Whipple was because I used to watch Grey's Anatomy all the time, and they would talk about doing a Whipple and get all excited because that was the hardest, longest surgery you could do. In a Whipple procedure, the surgeon removes the bottom of the patient's stomach, the affected portion of the pancreas, the top of the duodenum, and the gallbladder before returning the organs to their respective places. Saxton's surgery took 8 hours to perform. The surgery is really almost worse than the cancer itself in some ways, she said. She spent Christmas and New Year's in the hospital, couldn't eat or drink for weeks, and faced complications when caustic fluid from her pancreas eroded an artery in her liver. In total, recovery took 3 months. But that summer, she was back on her bike again, this time with a double reason to be thankful to Roswell, she said. Not just because of the breast cancer, but also for the pancreatic cancer. Alongside her husband, Rich, she's kept on riding every year since. This year, for her 20th ride, she's taking the 20-mile river route, running from Amherst to the Niagara River and back. And she's also aiming to raise $20,000 for Roswell. It's a great route, and it's lots of fun. There are always lots of people along the way who are cheering you on, she said. There are tons of people who volunteer for the ride, to direct people, and to be cheerleaders, and to help with all of the necessary arrangements, like food and everything else that is involved in all of this. It's really a huge effort. So far, Saxton has accrued $2,372 in donations from 25 donors, leaving $17,628 to raise before the June 27th ride. I've got 2 months to go, she said. A lot of people wait to donate, so we'll get there. Or if we don't get there, we'll get as close as we can. But it's an opportunity to educate people about inflammatory breast cancer, which a lot of women don't know about. Saxton's fundraising page can be found online at www.tiny-url.com/lyn-saxton-ride-for-Roswell. Once again, www.tinyurl.com/lyn-saxton-ride-for-Roswell. Moving on now. New York has some of the worst highway conditions in the U.S., according to a new study. This is from the Staten Island Advance. New York State has some of the worst highway conditions in the nation, according to a new study. The recently released Reason Foundation's 29th Annual Highway Report stated that New York State has the 4th worst performing and least cost-effective highway systems. Among the categories used to determine the overall rankings are pavement conditions, structurally deficient bridges, congestion, fatality rate, administrative costs, and more. When compared to its neighboring states, New York's overall highway performance is worse than Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and New Jersey. New York State comes in at 48th out of the 50 states in traffic congestion, with drivers spending about 62 hours a year stuck in traffic, according to the rankings. When it comes to spending and cost effectiveness, New York ranked 45th in capital and bridge disbursements, which are the costs of building new roads and bridges and widening existing ones. New York also ranked 46th in maintenance disbursements, such as the costs of repaving roads and filling in potholes. And when it comes to administrative disbursements, including office spending that doesn't make its way to roads, New York ranked 43rd nationwide. Here are the other New York rankings related to safety and conditions of highways. In terms of improving in the road condition and performance categories, New York should focus on reducing other disbursements, improving its urban interstate and arterial pavement conditions, and reducing its urbanized area congestion, said Baruch Feinenbaum, lead author of the 29th Annual Highway Report and Senior Managing Director of Transportation Policy at Reason Foundation. While the state performs relatively well in fatality rates, its poor pavement conditions and traffic congestion continue to undermine overall performance. Our next article is from Syracuse. New York's 2025-26 bear harvest reaches second highest total on record. Black bear hunters in New York had a banner year, according to harvest numbers just released by the State Department of Environmental Conservation. Hunters harvested an estimated 1,759 black bears during the 2025-26 hunting season. That total is second only to the 2003 season, while the number of bears harvested in the southern zone set a new record. The recovery and growth of New York's bear population is testament to DEC's vigilant wildlife management efforts, said DEC Commissioner Amanda Lefton. New York's big game management plans help maintain populations at levels that are acceptable for local communities and provide sustainable hunting opportunities. Statewide, hunters killed about 4% more bears than the 2024 season and 18% above the 10-year average. Hunters shot or arrowed black bears in 74 of 88 wildlife management units open to bear hunting. Bear harvest densities were highest in WMUs within the Catskills, Adirondacks, and Allegheny Mountains. With 106 bears harvested, WMU 6C in the northern zone had the highest total. The area encompasses parts of Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence, and Franklin counties on the northwestern corner of the Adirondacks and the Tug Hill Plateau. The northern zone harvest estimate of 557 bears was slightly lower than 2024, but still above the 10-year average. The southern zone take was more than twice as big at 1,202 bears, including the 10 heaviest bears recorded for the year. The record-setting bear season in the southern zone is the culmination of a long-term pattern DEC documented in New York's bear populations. In the 1950s, bears only occupied the most remote and mountainous regions of the state, such as the Adirondack, Catskill, and Allegheny Mountains. Over the past 70 years, however, bears gradually expanded their range, and DEC began opening new areas for bear hunting. Bears now occupy most areas of the state except Long Island and New York City, and all areas of the state are open to bear hunting except Long Island and areas closed to big game hunting. The expansion of bear range is particularly notable in the southern zone, where the bear harvest exceeded the northern zone for the first time in 1998 and has accounted for most of New York's bear harvest for the past 20 years. While bear populations have increased in the southern zone, the northern zone remains a traditional bear hunting destination. Northern zone bears typically grow slower in the wilderness ecosystems of the Adirondacks, but tend to live longer than their southern zone counterparts. All but one of the oldest bears on record were taken in the northern zone. And here's some notable numbers from the 2025 bear season. 74. The number of WMUs out of 88 open to bear hunting, which reported bear harvests. 562 pounds. The dressed weight of the heaviest reported bear shot in the town of Olive, Ulster County, WMU 3C. 668. The number of harvested bears from which DEC received pre-molar teeth to determine the bear's age. 26 years. The age of the oldest bear harvested in 2024, the most recent year for which age data are available. The bear was killed in the town Moores, Clinton County, WMU 5A. 21. Bears harvested per 100 square miles in WMU 3C, the highest harvest density of any WMU. DEC collects black bear harvest data from two main sources: harvest reports and physical examination of bears by DEC staff, cooperating taxidermists, and meat processors. Harvest estimates are made by cross-referencing these two data sources and determining the rate at which hunters report their bear harvests in each zone. In fall 2026, DEC will send a commemorative 2025 Black Bear Management Cooperator patch and a letter confirming each bear's age to all hunters who reported their bear harvest and submitted a tooth for age analysis. DEC's 2025 Bear Harvest Summary Report provides tables, figures, and maps detailing the bear harvest around the state. DEC's Black Bear Management Plan provides information on how DEC determines black bear population objectives throughout the state. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. And our next article is a letter to the editor, sharing fond memories of Seneca Mall. I have so many great memories of the Seneca Mall, which was located on Ridge Road in West Seneca, New York. The Seneca Mall originally opened in 1969, and I'll never forget all of the good times that I had, such as when I was a little boy. And this was in the early 1970s. And my parents used to take me to the West Seneca Art Show, which was located at either the Seneca Mall as well as the Southgate Plaza. Because my mother used to sell her very beautiful landscape paintings at the Seneca Mall Art Show, and all her paintings, which were all done in oil, by the way, as well as all her miscellaneous artwork that she sold during the Seneca Mall Art Show, such as tin plates, and especially coal scuttles that were lightly sprayed, painted a light green color. Then from there, she then painted bouquets of red roses on the edifice of her coal scuttles and her tinware, and all her art that she sold was neatly arranged on folding metal tables that was covered with a linen tablecloth. Sometimes to these Seneca Mall art shows, my grandmother Florence would accompany my mother when she would sell her fantastic art. Even my sister-in-law Kendra sold art at the Seneca Mall art show, which only goes to show that art talent runs in some families. In fact, Mother was a very gifted painter who studied oil painting under Jesse Wahlberg and Judy Gibson. Both Judy Gibson and Jesse Wahlberg were absolute leaders in the West Seneca Art Society. But the other memories I have is during that time when my parents took me to Seneca Mall. I vividly remember all of the great, but now defunct, stores of Seneca Mall, such as Cavage's Records, Walden Books, Montgomery Ward, Kleinhand's Men's Shop, and many, many others. In fact, one of the other memories that I had of Seneca Mall was taking walks there while everything at the mall itself was just bustling with business. In fact, when you first entered Seneca Mall from the front entrance, you'd probably see the huge and iconic fireplace, which became one of the signatures of Seneca Mall at that time. But, sadly, Seneca Mall closed for good in 1994, and even more sadly was with the closing of Seneca Mall, it left a void in all local nostalgists' hearts like myself. because it's a void that can't be satiated because it's gone, but it's not to be forgotten because we all have our memories of Seneca Mall, memories that will last a lifetime. And that letter was written by Tim Malley of Leroy. This article is from the New York Daily News. King Charles will address Congress. King Charles III will address a joint meeting of Congress during his upcoming U.S. visit. The King and Queen Camilla will travel to the East Coast for a 4-day trip beginning April 27th. His speech is to be delivered at some point during that stay, according to a Buckingham Palace press release. The address will mark only the second time a British monarch has addressed Congress. Queen Elizabeth spoke to U.S. lawmakers in 1991. The King and Queen consort will begin their trip by being welcomed informally by President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump over tea. That will be followed by events including a garden party, a ceremonial military review, and a state dinner. President Trump announced on social media that the banquet dinner is planned for April 28th. This event will be even more special this year as we commemorate the 250th anniversary of our great country, the president wrote. British statesmen, including Liberal Democrats leader Ed Davey, recommended the king cancel his trip out of fear that it could be seen as an endorsement of the U.S. president and the war in Iran. A state visit from our king would be seen as yet another huge diplomatic coup for President Trump, so it should not be given to someone who repeatedly insults and damages our country, he said in a statement published by the New York Times. The president has criticized the United Kingdom for not joining the U.S. and Israel in their attack against the Iranians. This will be King Charles's first visit to the U.S. since ascending to the throne in September 2022 upon the death of his mother. He traveled stateside 19 times while serving as the Prince of Wales, according to People. The royals' upcoming trip will also include a visit to New York where their majesties will commemorate those who lost their lives on 9/11 and meet serving first responders and their families of victims, according to Buckingham Palace. They are not expected to visit California, where Prince Harry resides, with his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. And now we'll turn to the Dear Abby column. This is written by Janine Phillips. Sister claims late mother changed her estate plan in secret. Dear Abby, my mother passed away recently. She suffered from dementia and was a cancer survivor, but she lived well into her 80s. It was difficult for me to witness her mental decline when I spoke to her on the phone or visited her occasionally in the nursing home. She lived near my sister, so my sister had a much closer relationship with her than I did. Mom met with my sister and me several years ago to discuss her estate planning. Both of us were included as beneficiaries, as well as Mom's second husband. My sister has just informed me that 3 years ago, Mom replaced the existing living trust with a new one, making her the sole beneficiary. She smugly claimed that she was always there for Mother and that I was an absentee child. I was stunned to learn this while still recovering from the loss of my mother. I contacted a trust attorney who told me I could contest the new trust on the grounds that Mother had dementia when it was prepared and that my sister may have coerced her to make her the sole beneficiary. If I pursue a lawsuit, it will undoubtedly drive a wedge between my family and my sister's family. On the other hand, doing nothing does not seem fair to my family. Please let me know what you think I should do. And that letter is from Son in California. Dear Son, I cannot decide this for you. What I think is that you should discuss this with your spouse, if you haven't already. Decide how much you need the money you were originally promised, and proceed from there. Regardless of what you do, your relationship with your sister will never be the same because of this. And in a second letter, Dear Abby, I'd like to offer some advice to shy people like me. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 30, although I had my share of female friends. I met a couple of women in online chat communities. I tried a bowling league in my 20s, but the bowlers were 3 times my age. Then I met someone online who introduced me to country music and country dancing. Dancing wasn't just a fun activity, but I made a lot of friends, dated a couple of women, and met my life's match. We have been married for 17 years now. If you don't know the dances, there are beginners' nights where you can learn. As a guy, I always had a numbers advantage because many women want partners to dance with. My advice would be to try it with no expectations, Abby. I hope this helps someone. That letter is from Still Dancin' in Pennsylvania. Abby's response, Dear Still Dancing, so do I because your message resonates with me. Years ago, I had a wonderful personal assistant, Olivia. She was born and raised in the great state of Texas and had a love of all things Western. Looking to get into the dating scene, one weekend Olivia went solo to a square dance, and that's where she met an angel who volunteered to dance with unescorted ladies. Long story short, they were married 2 months later. I was her matron of honor. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the April 16th, 2026 issue of the Batavia Daily News. We read from the Batavia Daily News every Saturday at 9 a.m. Your reader has been Will Evans. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the East Aurora Advertiser. At 11 o'clock, we have the Niagara Gazette. And at noon, we have the Dunkirk Observer. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which